Coming up on Mountain News this morning, Election Day has arrived and polls across the country are preparing for long lines all day long. Early voting in Kentucky brought in hundreds of thousands of voters to polling sites during the weekend.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News This Morning.
Hey, good Tuesday. Jim Freeman along. Monday really did end last night at midnight. Glad you're along today here on Mountain News This Morning as we close in on 5 o'clock. Megan's here with our first look at weather. Megan, good morning.
Good morning to you. Well, today we have some good weather for us, so that's something to look forward to as you're going into your election day. Right now, we're not going to have to worry about the visibility, as majority of the area are seeing those 10+ mile visibilities today. We got that low dew point and the warmer temperatures, so hopefully we can avoid any fog as you're going through your morning hours. Nice and clear on satellite and radars, just a couple of clouds in the sky right now. And as we're going to look at those current temperatures, you can see we are quite warm right now for this time of year. We're in the 50s. Some places are seeing that 60-degree mark, 62 in Pikeville, 61 in Hazard, and we'll continue to cool down just a little bit before we warm up into those high temperatures today, which will be in the upper 70s and low 80s. So definitely a warm election day. And as you're heading out through the next couple of hours, we'll continue to see that warm up trend with nice and mostly sunny skies throughout most of your day. Jim?
Megan Dosmal, our meteorologist. Thank you so much, Megan. Election day is finally here, and Kentuckians will soon arrive at the polls throughout the state. Here at WYMT, we'll be keeping a close eye on this historic 29th District Senate race and more. Following the unexpected death of Senator Johnny Turner, 11 candidates filed as a write-in candidate. The district includes Bell, Floyd, Harlan, Knott, and Letcher counties. Each ballot will need to be hand counted due to the write-in element. Officials with the Kentucky Secretary of State's office say they anticipate the votes will be counted on election night. You can learn more about the candidates on our website. Some Kentucky voters will also vote on medical cannabis, alcohol sales, and various other local races. There are also potential changes to the state's constitution. If approved, Amendment 2 would give state lawmakers the power to use tax money on education options that are not public schools. Supporters say it could expand access to other education options like private schools. Critics say that money generated from taxes should be used to improve public schools. Amendment 1 is also on the Kentucky ballot. It would add one line to the constitutional provision for voting rights, explicitly stating that, quote, no person who is not a citizen of the United States shall be allowed to vote in this state. Now, supporters say it eliminates any gray area on who is or who is not allowed to vote in Kentucky. Lawmakers who oppose the amendment say it's not needed because the state does not have an issue with non-citizens voting. We continue to highlight some of the more prominent races in eastern Kentucky. Here's another one. This is the battle for Commonwealth's attorney for the 47th Judicial Circuit. Former Commonwealth's attorney Edison Banks, who had retired, will take on the incumbent Matthew Butler. The 47th Judicial Circuit consists of Letcher County. And in the battle for state representative in the 84th District, Chris Fugit, who is the incumbent and a pastor, will square off against Democrat Zach Hall. The 84th District consists of Perry, Owsley, and Breathitt counties. Another race in our viewing area is in Rockcastle County. The battle for mayor in Livingston is taking place. That features Lawrence Thayer Jr. against Sandy Singleton. Early voting went very smoothly in Kentucky, and it should result in fewer long lines on Election Day today. That's according to Secretary of State Michael Adams. Adams says nearly 800,000 Kentuckians have already voted, either absentee or during the no-excuse early voting period. Adams says his crew did not receive any complaints in Frankfort about problems or equipment malfunctioning. He says people have been able to vote for their candidate of their choice.
In Laurel County, we had one voter who had trouble following instructions and correctly operating a ballot marking device. She confirmed that she was able to vote for the candidate of her choice, and her vote was counted. She didn't put that in her TikTok video, unfortunately.
Adams says if you're voting for a write-in candidate today, it's very important to fill in the bubble indicating that you are voting write-in, then proceed to write in the name of the candidate. Groups throughout Lexington are encouraging people to get out and vote. Members of the League of Women Voters and the group Advocacy-Based Lived Experience want to improve voter turnout in Kentucky. They say the majority of registered voters never go to the polls. Advocates say they are working to educate people on how to vote and the importance of their voice.
The more that we feel connected to our communities, the less likely we are to create harm in our community, right? So it's that sense of belonging, that purpose that we have, that we go out and we share those things.
You need a photo ID to vote. That could be your driver's license, passport, or student ID. You can bring a note card into the voting booth as well. People with disabilities can bring someone to help or ask a poll worker for assistance. Now let's take a look at where to vote and how. You can vote as long as you're in line at your voting location by 6 p.m. when the polls close. Your voting location is based on the voting precinct that you live in. If you do not know where your voting location is, you can check online. Secretary of State Michael Adams urges people who are voting by mail to return their ballot to a secure drop box given to their county clerk.
The safest thing is to use the drop box. Number one, it's quicker because we get it immediately instead of having to wait for the mail to run. Number two, they're more secure.
All mail-in ballots have to be received by 6 p.m. today when the polls close. Otherwise, they will not be counted. And a reminder, polls open here in just a little bit at 6 a.m. They'll close by 6 p.m. today here in Kentucky. Voters will need to bring a valid ID to the polls. If you're in line by 6 p.m., you will be allowed to vote. You can report any election law violations to the voter fraud hotline at 800-328-VOTE. More election coverage begins with Mountain News this morning when the polls open. Then join us later this evening at 5:30, 6, 7, and 11 for coverage throughout the region. We'll also have local updates throughout the night during CBS News coverage, and you can find results as we get them on WYMT.com and the WYMT News app.